rule of law, the foundation of a free and fair society where access to justice is available to all. It underpins our Constitution and is what drives and unifies our 10,600 employees across 150 countries worldwide at LexisNexis. Disrupting the way corporate, legal and government professionals do business, making it possible for them to shape the world we live in for a better future. A leading legal technology organization with more than 85 years' experience in the South African legal landscape, we empower legal practitioners with access to the latest precedents, expert-curated content, and solutions to drive the wheels of justice in our country. Using artificial intelligence technologies such as data analytics, natural language processing, and machine learning, we are reshaping the way legal professionals work. We offer governance, risk, and compliance software solutions that assist corporate professionals in proactively identifying and managing areas that could potentially impact their business, and help human resource practitioners appoint the right people with the right qualifications to drive a profitable future. We play our part in making it possible for individuals to become the rightful owners of their first homes, bringing the property ecosystem together by harnessing the power of technology. We get it right so that our customers can get it right. We are advancing the practice of law, the compliance with law, and the upholding of the rule of law. Because at LexisNexis, we are advancing what's possible.
Good morning again. Welcome everybody. I just had a quick little emergency when I was about to start, but that's all sorted now. Background noise, but yeah, we managed to kill that. Just by introduction, I'm Bos van Stramrood and I'll be your facilitator today. I've also got Natasha Kistan on the panel who will be our presenter. Excuse me, and then we will have Sibu in the background that will make sure that any questions, any queries are being handled, and she will be of assistance to you. We've also got Greg Chamberlain, who will be one of our future panelists, not today, but in future. He will also cover some of our presentations. So, as I said, my name is Bos van Stramrood. I'm the General Manager, GRC Software Solutions, and I will be your facilitator today. Welcome to our second webinar, the first of a series and many more to come. We had our first one last week, and some of you may have attended that. Welcome to you attending our second one, and then also to all the new attendees. Today will be the last one for this year, and then later next year, later in January, we will start it up again, and we will cover topics in terms of health and safety, in terms of risk management, in terms of compliance, legal obligation alerts, and so forth. Last week we had a discussion around the POPI Act and how you could incorporate it and how you can use the Lexis GRC solution to manage your obligations. And then today, Natasha is going to talk to us about using Lexis GRC for BCM during the COVID-19 time, and probably a time that's still going to be with us for quite some time. So, if I just look at what we're gonna cover today, or before I hand over to Natasha, I just want to go over a couple of house rules. We've always got a few things that we just need to remind you of. First of all, please make sure that all mics are off. Sibu will normally make sure of that. But if for some reason you do switch it on, just try and keep it off. Make sure it is off. You know, if there's other disturbances, it sometimes makes it difficult for the presenter to come across and to be clear. So for the duration of the webinar, keep it off. Sibu will, as I said, will handle that. And then if you do have any questions or queries or anything to be taken care of, then please use the chat function to talk or comment. Then there's a question and answer function at the bottom of your screens. If you do have any questions, we will allow for question and answers right at the end, the last 10 minutes or so. Please post your questions under that section and not the chat box, but rather the question and answer section. And we will either answer during the session, or we will take care of that right at the end when we can address that with everybody. And then during the course of the presentation, probably more towards the end, the last 5 minutes or so, 5-10 minutes, we'll also run polls, and please answer those. It also gives us some indication of what your needs are, whether we need to chat to you after this, and if there's any other interests that you may have. So please also answer those. That'll greatly help us also to be more effective after this, you know, and to do something about what we get out of this session. And then maybe just quickly before Natasha starts, a quick little bio on who she is and what she does. Natasha is one of our LexisNexis GRC consultants, and she's primarily responsible for implementation, training, and assistance consultation with clients on the solutions, but also on the subject matter of compliance and risk. Then Natasha's got about 16 years of experience in the financial services sector, holding various management positions during that time. And Natasha is with LexisNexis now for approximately 3 to 4 years. Over the latter part of Natasha's career, she developed a passion for risk and compliance, and she gained extensive knowledge in this area, also through further studies, and she also gained a lot of knowledge in terms of compliance risk analysis. And then in terms of her education, she seems to be quite well educated. She holds a Bachelor of Arts and postgraduate law degree from Wits University. And then she's also done certificates in short-term insurance with UNISA. And more recently, she's done the University of Cape Town's Compliance Management Certificate. Yeah, and that is Natasha. She's quite passionate about the subject. She's really eager to give advice, and she's very innovative when it comes to this and putting it around tools that clients and users can then apply their day-to-day activities. So without further ado, Natasha, over to you. Thank you. Just, you're still on mute. Natasha, you're still on mute.
Thank you for that, Bosman. Thank you so much for that kind introduction, Bosman. And thank you for everybody, for joining us. I know that it is that time of the year, and we are looking forward to the holidays. So thank you so much for taking the time out and coming out to have a look at our GRC solution and how this could be used practically in your day-to-day environment in terms of managing your governance, risk and compliance. So without further ado, I'm going to go forward and I'm going to share my presentation. So what we're going to do today is I'm going to go through a short presentation, and then I'm going to go on to our governance, risk and compliance solution. And we are going to go through a practical example with regards to COVID-19. Okay, so let's begin with the presentation. I'm just going to get there. let's move the screen down properly and begin with the presentation. So today's topic of conversation, I suppose, because you guys will be talking to me over the chat line, is with respect to using the GRC tools for business continuity management. And specifically what we're going to do today is that we're going to use a COVID example. The features and functionality with respect to the Lexis GRC system. And if you look at the products, Bosman has showed you a short video as regards to, all the major key focus products that we have across LexisNexis. Today, we will be concentrating on the Lexis GRC system. And in particular, we're going to move through HIRA, incident management, forms and checklists, as well as surveys. So just to begin, I thought I would leave us with I would start with a small quote, and that is from Robert Burns with regards to the best laid plans of mice and men often go awry. And I think for 2020, this is much of how everybody is feeling and was feeling at the beginning, and probably still is feeling about the plans that we had for the beginning of the year and how we are feeling now. But I think there is light at the end of the tunnel. And if you know this little quote, you would know that it is about a little mouse whose house is crushed by a plow. However, at the end of the day, the things that we can take away from this poem is that, number one, you are not alone. We are in a present situation, but this too will pass. And however fearful we may be, we can look forward to the future. So let's look at the GRC system and let's look at how this system can actually assist us when everything kind of went topsy-turvy in March. So I'm certain for many people and in a lot of companies, you already had your business continuity plans that were in place. I think, though, for most people, the thing that we didn't expect was our plans with respect to our tiers of people, our critical staff, etc., and our plans for example, moving premises to other locations, etc. None of that really made sense because ultimately the president came on and he said, well, this is who your critical staff is going to be. This is going to be who is going to be able to work. And the majority of your staff or all of your staff is going to have to go home. So that really just put a spin on things. And I'm sure for a lot of people that was a sheer moment of panic to begin with. However, there were a lot of resources on the internet, and LexisNexis was one of those companies who came out right in the beginning and really made a difference in terms of making the COVID-19 regulations free and available to everyone. So the first thing we're going to have a look at is the COVID-19 regulations, because that's really where your starting point was. Who could go to work, who couldn't go to work, who could move freely around, and what were the rules around those items. The next thing that struck me was a COVID-19 business continuity checklist, and this was also information that was shared to the public at large, and how you could really take that information out and put it in the GRC system in the form of a checklist. The hazard identification and risk assessment tool is really key, and here I'm going to take you through actually identifying that COVID-19 risk as a biological hazard, and then taking it through a risk assessment that can be rescheduled for assessment on a regular basis. Thereafterwards, I'm looking at surveys. I'm looking at surveys in terms of gauging the mood of employees with respect to returning to work. We seem to be there now, and that has happened a lot over the last few months as we come out of lockdown. Incident management, getting back into business and having a COVID-19 case and how to manage that. And lastly, the dashboards. So the ability to report and the ability to really hone in on where you need to trigger off and make decisions around your business. And that is going to be the end of the presentation. So without further ado, let's get back into it And I'm now going to take you into our Lexis GRC system. So the first thing that we did was is that we realized that we were not able to go to work. There were rules and there were regulations around it. LexisNexis made the regulations available, and what we've done in the GRC system is literally to open up a page on our GRC system and then provide that link through to the business. So you would have been able, or you are able then to go into and click on this link, which will then take you into the COVID-19 Resource Center, which was provided by LexisNexis. And this contained all the rules and all the regulations that you needed to in order for you to make those quick snap decisions around the continuing of your business. Then afterwards, I am then able to go into the forms and checklists. And I mentioned earlier that there was a lot of information which came through from various sectors of the business. And this is one of the items that really stuck out for me. It was a business continuity plan or a business continuity checklist. And it was focused more around, the items relating to what COVID-19 was about. So if you can see, it's got items like identify an emergency coordinator and or team with defined roles and responsibility for preparedness and response planning. And the process planning should include input from labor representatives. Identify essential employees and other critical inputs. And again, I would identify these essential employees and critical inputs in relation to the resources that were coming out from the COVID-19 Resource Center. Training and preparing ancillary staff, developing and planning for scenarios likely to result in an increase or decrease in demand of your products, and so on and so forth. Now, what I've done with this particular checklist is that I've taken it and have put it into the GRC forms and checklist module that is available. So the idea around this is that you could put it into a form, and depending on the size of your organization, you could then take this very basic checklist, and you could then send it out to key personnel in your organization so that you could get responses back as regards to how many of these items, and really get a sense of how much of this you were ready for in terms of the business continuity management. You would then get your answers back, and you would then get a sense from the business, I said, we don't have an emergency coordinator, we need to get that done. We're in progress in terms of preparing our ancillary staff. We've developed a plan and scenarios. And of course, depending on where you are, you could do this on a daily basis if you needed to. You could do this on a weekly basis, just in terms of doing that critical sitting of your of key personnel in terms of how much of these items you were actually moving on a week by week or on a day-to-day basis. So I'm just going to take this and I'm just going to set it aside because we've looked at the regulations and we've now looked at a basic checklist in terms of BCM based on this pandemic or COVID-19 scenario. And then hopefully panic would have washed over me a little bit more and I can actually get into what the crux of the matter in respect to COVID-19 is. And this is really where I get to the hazards and the aspects and really breaking down what COVID-19 is and what it actually means to an organization. So the first thing you would see on the left-hand side, and I've got a very, this is our sales demo. You can see I've got a very complex structure on my GRC system. So it really just caters for every organization. It affects the whole business, right? And we know that it is a hazard and we know that this is COVID-19. So under the hazard description, I didn't have any problem to try and get a definition as regards to what COVID-19 was. I found this interesting in terms of the CO stands for corona, the VI stands for virus, and the D stands for disease. So we're looking at COVID-19. So the COVID-19 pandemic, also known as the coronavirus, is an ongoing pandemic of coronavirus diseases from 2019 and caused by the transmission of severe acute respiratory syndrome. And that's really just a very detailed description that I'm putting into the system, and I know that it is a biological hazard. Quite interestingly, I've actually needed to add this in onto my system, which is easy because I went onto the system and I've added it in on my back office, which is what the GRC system is also capable of. Because what we do is that we configure as and when the business needs or requires changes, we configure in the items that we need in order for the system to be logical and to make sense for us. Hazard and aspect has been identified. I now look at my aspect with regards to risk impacts. And here you can see I've already captured a risk impact. I'm going to go in and I'm going to show you exactly the detail that I've captured in this particular circumstance. All right, so certain information, and again, this comes down to the configuration of your business. So I'm using a basic example that we have of our sales demo system. You can see that my risk impact, my assessor facilitator, I've appointed that as Bossman. I've created my title, which is my COVID-19. I can put a full description in on this item again if I so choose. I've done that before. And here I now start saying, okay, but where is the impact? I know that it's operational. I know that it's financial. I know it's occupational health, and I know that it's safety, and it might be many more of those things as well. And those are the areas that I really need to identify, because ultimately, if I have key people in my organization, a different person obviously taking care of financial, occupational, etc., I need those people to put their financial lenses on this risk, their occupational health lenses on this risk, and to make the right decisions around the triggers that need to be pulled in order for this risk to move from a red to an amber to, and then to a green item. At the instance, I'm saying that my risk assessment cycle is going to be weekly, and that means that I'm going to take this risk and I'm literally going to look at it on a weekly basis until such time as I'm satisfied with it. Under this particular item as well, remember we are LexisNexis, we do have that full library available. So the Disaster Management Act is something that I can immediately link to it. And on the top, if I look at my company strategy, I want to take this risk and I want to link it to a particular piece of legislation that I'm going to have available to me. And I'm also going to link it to specific strategic interests that may be impacted because of this hazard. If I look at my item with regards to inherent risk, so I know it's almost certain. I know that it's catastrophic. I can't imagine that anyone else in any organization has done anything but put it on its highest tier. And the exposure to this item is daily. So immediately this risk impact is coming out high. I'm putting in that it's a priority for me. I'm putting in the CEO as, in this instance, it's one of our former colleagues, Mr. Greg Brown. And I've put him down as the person, but most importantly, I think besides the name of the person, is that I have put this under the risk impact owner. Is probably going to be the CEO, strictly speaking. So under the road notes and rationale, I'm looking at COVID-19 pandemic. I'm looking at the South African government restrictions on the movement of persons, and I'm looking at the Disaster Management Act. These are just basics that I'm looking at. So again, I'm already calmed down a little bit more. I know exactly what it is that I'm dealing with. I know the impact of it. I know how high risk rated it is. I'm looking at my legislation. I've got this nice checklist that I've got going on for business, so we know that there's something happening there in terms of some actions and some triggers that have been pulled. And now I really need to start looking at controls. What do I have to curtail the situation? And again, this is not advice from me, or this is not advice from LexisNexis for that matter, but this is just an example of how some of the things have flowed out in various businesses from the time that we were informed of the lockdown. So I think one of the first things that happened was we need to get our people working. We need to get BCM remote working facilities. And this was really a control at the end of the day. In order for us to control this hazard, we need to send our people home, and we need to get them working as well in terms of putting in remote working facilities. So for me, the control description was business capable actions to deploy remote working capabilities to all employees of the business, hardware and software deployment to all staff members lying for remote access working. And that point, you can see that I've put it in planning, and I've looked at it as a measurement that I was going to look at daily, because I couldn't imagine that it would be anything but that. How much are we getting done? And initially, I'm saying that control was ineffective, because ultimately it wasn't as if we could snap our fingers on day one and say, everybody go home, and here's a laptop, and here's a computer, and here's data, etc., etc. It kind of happened in stages in terms of how those people could get home and get working and get secure access. Craig Chamberlain is the IT tech head. He was then appointed as the person who was going to ensure that this item was going to happen. And if he wasn't already informed, I would then be able to create a task and say to Greg, please, could you please ensure that 50 of our staff members who have been rated as critical staff members receive their remote access before anyone else does, or however that worked in your business. I did, and you can put in as many controls as you want to, and these were just examples, but another one that came up very quickly was secure access of online facilities. Fraud was a massive issue during COVID-19 with all the remote accesses, so this was also a very primary item that we then needed to have a look at. So then having a look at this risk assessment, and why I said that we looked at this risk assessment and we rescheduled it, as you can see, I can reschedule it here on my system on a weekly basis, was because after all of the little things or the little controls, or as we started moving the needle a little bit more, we managed to start moving from that red to that amber to that green item, but it was something that we needed to have a look at on a weekly basis. So as an example here on this risk assessment, and I'm looking at residual risk assessment, one that I've already completed so that I don't bore you in terms of the clicking. I have still, even though I'm looking at these controls, I know that I'm still very much in the red with regards to these items. I'm saying that it is still certain, it is still major. And then I'm rescheduling an assessment to happen at a later stage. Now, how do I move that dial? So one of the things that I've done is that I know that I've done this item, which is the forms and the checklists. So the forms and the checklists have come in and said, well, if I look at this item with regards to identifying an emergency coordinator, I haven't even started that. So as much as I have these items with the tech guys going and the computers and the laptops going, etc., I haven't actually identified somebody to take this over. So that's one of the first things that I've done in terms of creating a task action on this hazard and impact risk, is that I created a task. And on this task item, I've said I need to identify emergency coordinator. I've assigned it to Ayanda. I'm the person who's responsible. It's pending its audit, its occupational health high. And you see, I've just literally copied and pasted, identify an emergency coordinator and or team with defined roles. And I've put that into somebody's hands, and I've said it needs to be done ASAP, already by the next day. So this person would have then received an email from me to say, hey, you know what, please can you identify and attend to this item immediately, and please provide me feedback on this. This action plan will then go into a task or task item or task schedule that I can then track on my Lexis GRC system to make sure that that actually moves. So let's just take a pause there because I've gone pretty fast through these items. Where I began was to say we need to look at these resources. Let's get some information going out and getting information back to our business on our readiness and our checklist. So that was also something that we did. And then we actually just went in practically to identify that risk and see what were some of the controls that we already had in the business. And I'm going to come back to this item with regards to surveys at another time. But where I'm actually going to go in now is also say, well, you know, this is what we've practically done in terms of moving from one stage to another. And now we're already in an environment of where we're starting to look at, well, people coming back to work, etc., probably from next year. But that is something that you actually want to gauge from. It is something that you actually want to gauge from your wider employee audience. And that's something that you can have a look at under your surveys module. So under the surveys module, you would see that I have, and I'm going to just do that very quickly. I'm going to attach a survey that was created earlier, and that survey was in relation to the COVID-19 returning to work survey. Again, resources that in the circumstances I have picked up, just generally from the internet, but something that I actually saw and that I wanted to put into a tool, and I want to actually put in a working format. So the Lexis GRC survey module would allow you then to pick up a survey, create a distribution list for your particular survey. You'd be allowed to create the questions on that particular survey, send it out to people within your organization, and receive your responses back. So for our purposes, and you can see there's reports, there's findings, related items, and analysis. But for our circumstances, I just wanted to show you the idea of what this involves. So just simple questions like, are you looking forward to returning to work? If you have been working from home, would you prefer to continue doing so? Or do you have concerns about commuting to work? Okay. And this is something that you would just then receive responses from, and you would be able to gauge from your employees as regards to what their sense is about coming back to work going forward. And then you can relook at or reschedule doing this risk assessment and really start putting in further controls as regards to people coming back to work, or where your next move needs to be around those particular items. And just to show you on an end, I want to show you that you have a full audit trail with regards to this particular risk. So as much as you're going to go in and you're going to reschedule further assessments as more controls come into place, as you get a further sense with regards to your surveys, as you get a further sense as regards to your forms and checklists, because you'll be sending that information out on a regular basis. And the nice thing about this is that you're going to keep the information in one place where it's going to be continually changing. Your past risk assessments you're going to see your past risk assessments. You're going to see your controls that have been changing. You're going to see whether those are partially effective and what's effective and how that has moved, over the period. And this is really going to give you a sense of comfort, I think, and now the discomfort that you have and the panic that you've had at the beginning is going to start to look as though you have things, well underway and in control. So now people are back at work. What do you do? If you have a situation with regards to a COVID-19 case, and do you currently have BCM tools? I'm just going to minimize this poll that I have coming through. So the next item that I then want to have a look at is with respect to an incident. And let me just find this particular item. Okay. Compliance, and we're going to go into incident management. And I'm just going to find that particular item. And I'm going to open that item in particular. Okay. So we're back at work and we have an incident with regards to COVID-19. So I'm going to have to log an incident because it was something that happened at work. This person was lost at work, so I'm going to have to log an incident, but I'm also going to want to track it. I'm also going to want to inform in contact persons, and I'm also going to want to manage an item with respect to the risk. and in particular with regards to what are the protocols that I'm going to follow in office for a COVID-19 positive case. So under your risk type, we're saying it's occupational health. I've logged it as an employee. And Lewis Hamilton, I don't know if you guys have been watching the news, but Lewis Hamilton has been tested positive for COVID-19. I'm sorry, that's not something that is funny, but Lewis Hamilton has been tested positive for COVID-19 since his last F1 Grand Prix. So Lewis Hamilton in his location at the LexisNexis sales demo from the F1 Grand Prix. The client, or rather the employee, has tested positive for COVID-19 and was last in the office on what particular day. We can put up any photographs if we need to. It's not necessary, obviously, in this particular case. But the immediate causes is that an in-contact person to Mr. Hamilton tested positive for COVID-19. The employee thereafter tested negative for 3 further tests. However, a few days later, feeling mild symptoms, he tested positive. Incident level is level 1 or level 4, depending on how your rating scale is, and we're saying that he is going to require medical treatment. On that next item, is he an injured person? No, he isn't an injured person. Were there vehicles involved? Absolutely not. There was no vehicles involved. Was it security related? And I'm really just taking you through these items just to show you the diversity around a particular system that has more detail rather than less, which is also very helpful in terms of you being able to capture out an incident. So when you look at these incidents as well, and you look at the items around an incident investigation, for example, I'm looking at an item with regards to an incident investigation, and under these investigation details, I can then start putting in full details with regards to when was it done, when was the investigation done, did the investigation take place, do I need to put in an investigation team, how do I then classify those particular items. And if I then classify those particular items, did it require monetary treatment? What is the productivity downtime for Mr. Lewis Hamilton going to be? He's not going to be able to attend the Grand Prix next week. They're going to have to put a replacement in. What is going to be the travel costs? What is going to be a product loss or damage? So all of those items are items that you can pick off in terms of this incident investigation. Witnesses and testimonies, and this is an item that we can look at in a little bit more of a logic framework. But in these circumstances, I would definitely look at putting in information with regards to more or further in contact people, and really identifying those people who need to be informed with regards to the COVID-19 case. I can put in timelines with regards to how that has happened. I can put in costs with regards to it. Most importantly, I can link it to that COVID-19 risk as well that I've captured, so that I can put that item down as a high priority, and link all of the items in relation to that COVID-19 risk, so that I can actually see what the impact is on that particular incident. So in this circumstances, I can just click on this item and I can click on save as my COVID-19 risk, and I can link this item to that risk, so that at a later stage when I pull out my data on my interactive dashboards, then I can. And the same thing with regards to any surveys that I need to put out. And maybe that survey could be something as interesting as, have you been in contact with Mr. Lewis Hamilton? If so, if yes, please can you contact the following people? It could be something as interesting as that. A form and a checklist is also something that you can do in terms of getting information out to clients and asking them questions about how they feel, have they been in contact, do they have some symptoms, etc. So very very good tools that can be easily used and manipulated for the purposes that you require throughout your business continuity management and management of your risks on a high level. So that is looking at, and again, just a quick summary of what we were doing, looking at your COVID-19 resources, putting out a checklist to the business to gauge readiness or preparedness, or what are the items that you have in place with regards to business continuity management, capturing your risk in terms of the HIRA, and doing a complete risk assessment together with your controls and your action plans that can be easily referenced out to that forms and checklists and information that is coming out. Action plans that can be easily relatable to your surveys as well. Incident management that can be captured based on any type of incident, whether it is a health and safety, a COVID-19 incident, or whether it's something related to a security incident on your premises as well. So for the next few minutes, and I am nearly done with the presentation, I just want to take you through some of the information that we have in relation to our interactive dashboards. So this just needs to go away for a second. There we go. So moving backwards from where we started, an incident manage log. On the left-hand side, you will see that I've got locations. On this incident management, you will see that I have these blocks. And the blocks that I have on my Lexis GRC system is what we call our interactive dashboard. And the reason why we say it's interactive is because you can move the marks on your dashboard, and it will give you a full picture of information. So you would easily be able to click and link on information that you would find relevant or that you would want to hone in on or concentrate on, in order for you to get a view of where you need to pull your triggers or where your areas of concentration need to be. So here's an example of what it would look like if I would look at information from Q3 of 2018. In my instance, I only want to look at the incident in relation to that December incident, which was captured. So if I click it on, you would see that the information changes in relation only to the COVID-19 case. And here you would see it would give me information as regards to what the cost is, where the location is, how long the incident has been opened, and just further information, what's the injury loss time or injury frequency rates, if I was to capture those information, medical treatment, who it was logged by, etc. And just to give you a sense of how that information would actually fit into all types of incidents. I could, for example, look at something and say, all right, I just want to look at information in relation to my LexisNexis Durban office, for example, and I would be able to get that information out. So the idea around this as well is that I would be able to hone in on my COVID-19 cases, and I would be able to get a true reflection of how that does have an impact on the situation. Excuse me. I'm just going to pause for 1 second. Okay, that's fine. Thank you very much. Sorry about that. Just had a moment of sheer panic. And the next item that I look at is hazards aspects and risk impacts. And that's where we looked at our risk item, for example, and the COVID-19 case. So really just looking at that COVID-19, I like to look at this control effectiveness. We had one that was effective, we had one that was ineffective, and already those task action items can really just keep a good eye on that particular item to say, all right, this is the item that is overdue, and this is something I need to possibly follow up with, how that impacts our entire organization. And in this instance, our risk impact was high. I can actually take that out in relation to how this actually plays out different risks in the organization as well. So, and that will take just 1 second to load. but you can definitely see how that actually works in the rest of the organization in terms of COVID-19, fire test or severe injury or whatever the case may be. So yeah, if I look at, and I just do my last summary of today, it's really just taking the very big topic or the big event that was COVID-19, and just taking it and breaking it up into its smaller pieces, from a moment of sheer panic to a moment of where we start to get control of the particular item, and having a tool like Lexis GRC just assists you in terms of putting all of those pieces in its right, putting all those pieces of the puzzle in its right place, and being able to track and monitor it, and making the right decisions around the triggers. So hopefully I've moved that mark for you, from that previous quote from Mr. Burns to the effect of where, as much as the best laid plans of men and mice go awry, we can look forward to to light at the end of the tunnel, and that really is just by us putting the pieces back together at the end of the day and working through it systematically. Over to you, Bosman.
Thank you, Natasha, and yeah, thank you for giving us that detailed overview. And obviously, there's a lot more, I guess, that you could have gone through, but we have so much time for that detailed overview on COVID-19. Something that I think most of us is well educated on by now. After about 8+ months, we've learned so much, and I think we managed to cut out a lot of the fake news, and most people has got some real information over this period of time. But yeah, COVID-19 is with us and it's here to stay. And as we understand, I mean, there's even, I think everybody knows there's talks about a second wave. But we need to be prepared. And I think that's why we have BCM, Business Continuity Management. And in the last couple of months, I've never seen something getting up to the boardroom level so quickly, compared to any other topics. It is something on everybody's minds, and not just on a social level, but also in companies and boardrooms and exco. So it's really something that a lot of organizations has taken to heart and prepared. What I understand that you went through is just highlighting how important it is to actually keep record of all of these things. And there's various means. I mean, incidents, we need to report when somebody has been identified with COVID. Most organizations have got registers and means of measuring temperature and so forth. But all of these records can be pulled together and give us a consolidated view of how prepared we are and how good we are in terms of managing continuity. So thank you for that. Just in terms of questions and answers, we are actually, I don't know if it's lucky or unlucky, but we have almost run out of time. There's no questions today. So yeah, I thought just a couple of keynotes. COVID is with us. We all understand it. Business continuity management is moved up the ranks in the organization very quickly in most organizations that I know of and people that I speak to. And we need to manage that. And what we're basically saying here is that these are the means and the tools and the solutions to actually get it all together, from incidents that are being reported to identifying where your areas of risk are, because each and every company has got a different kind of setup, about different sectors. Manufacturing is different from your financial sector. So obviously the controls would be different as well. And so in summary, I think you highlighted that quite clearly. Here's a means of how you can bring it all together and manage your business continuity effectively. There's another 2 minutes for you if you need to, if you can complete the polls. Just lastly from me, thank you for joining us today, and stay safe during this festive season. I know there are talks of certain areas that may be where further restrictions may be imposed. So just be on the lookout. Keep your safe distance, use your masks, and stay safe during these festive times. And yeah, go well. And if all goes well and everybody's safe, hopefully we will see all of you and your colleagues again late in January. Thank you for your time. Stay safe and go well. Bye-bye.